A constitutional rights group has put Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston on notice after his government banned residents from walking in the forest and set up a snitch line for violators of the law.
A Sikh temple in Surrey, BC has erected a large banner promoting a, quote, Republic of Khalistan, publicizing its support for anti-Indian separatism, which many label as extremist.
In an answer to a question from Juno News Keean Bexte, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre laid out his plan to fix Canada's immigration system and disincentivize fraud among asylum seekers. Hello Canada, it's Friday, August 8th, and this is the True North Daily Brief. I'm Isaac Lamoureux.
And I'm Walid Tamtam.
We've got you covered with all the news you need to know. Let's discuss the top stories of the day and the True North exclusives you won't hear anywhere else. A constitutional rights group has issued a warning to Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston, urging him to reverse the province's forest ban or risk infringing on the fundamental rights of Canadians. This comes as Nova Scotia introduces what some are calling a snitch line for residents to report neighbours who enter forests, an act now considered a finable offence. The Canadian Constitution Foundation, a civil liberties organisation, has put Houston on notice, claiming that Nova Scotia's blanket travel ban on entering forests in a bid to prevent wildfires is an unjustified infringement on Canadians' liberty. The restriction announced Tuesday prescribes fines up to $25,000 for hiking, camping, fishing, or using vehicles in the woods to prevent potential forest fires. According to Nova Scotia Forest Notes, about 75% of the province is covered in forest. Since the Tuesday announcement, the province's Natural Resources Department has set up a phone line residents can call to report anyone breaching burn ban or woods restriction measures. In a post on X, the province warned potential callers that some individuals may have travel permits if their work requires them to be in the forest. The CCF, a legal charity which through litigation and education aims to protect Canadians' civil liberties. The organization sent a letter to Houston and his Natural Resources Minister, Tory Rushton, warning them to amend the restrictions. Josh DeHaas, legal counsel for the CCF, wrote in the letter, quote, I'm writing out of concern that your province-wide ban on entry into the woods for the purposes of traveling, camping, fishing, picnicking, or any other purpose without a valid permit arbitrarily infringes on the rights and freedoms of Nova Scotians. While the Forests Act contemplates restricting travel into particular zones to protect the forests, it is unreasonable to interpret the act as authorizing blanket province-wide bans on activities that pose no serious risk of sparking fires. So Walid, what's unique about the CCF intervening here? What arguments will they be bringing to the table in this case?
So Josh in his letter says, and he quotes, while the Forest Act contemplates restricting travel into particular zones to protect the forests, he argues that it's unreasonable to interpret the act as authorizing blanket province-wide bans on activities that pose no serious risk of sparking fires. Now, the legal case here, in terms of the Constitution, he says that the blanket travel ban imposed by the Nova Scotia government infringes the right to liberty protected by Section 7 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It also limits common law rights and may impact on the Aboriginal and treaty rights protected by Section 35 of the Constitutional Act 1982. So, again, whether it's Indigenous rights, civil liberties, the Constitution, or common law, Joss has made the case that the Nova Scotia government is infringing on more than just one front. And he also says in his letter that a $25,000 fine for hiking, birdwatching, or fishing in the woods is also grossly disproportionate. So the CCF and Joss are leading the way to convince this Nova Scotia government to rescind their actions and are calling on the public to sign on to their petition in order to increase pressure on the government to pull back. A Sikh temple in Surrey, BC has erected a large banner promoting a so-called Republic of Khalistan, drawing support, ridicule, and condemnation online. The promotional banner for a so-called Republic of Khalistan, which has now gone viral, was established on the premises of the Guru Nanak Sikh Gurdwara in the city's Newton neighborhood, the same temple where Hardeep Singh Najjar, a vocal Khalistan separatist, served as president before he was shot dead in the temple parking lot in June 2023. Critics have pointed to the promotional banner as further evidence of Canada's inaction towards pro-Khalistan extremism and anti-India separatist activity within its borders. The temple has long been a source of controversy both in Canada and abroad for displaying posters and banners portraying individuals accused of terrorism as Sikh martyrs, and for openly promoting the creation of an independent Khalistan state carved out of India's Punjab region. Large banners inside and outside the Gurdwara have featured images of Nijar as well as Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale, Talwinder Singh Parmar, two men closely associated with violence and terrorism. Bhindranwale, killed by Indian forces in 1984 during a siege of the Golden Temple in Amritsar, remains a polarizing figure seen by some Sikhs as a defender of the faith and by others as a militant leader. Parmar, widely believed to have masterminded the 1985 Air India bombing that killed 329 people, including 280 Canadian citizens, is a particularly contentious figure in Canada. Though Parmar was never convicted before his death, a Canadian judicial inquiry later concluded he was indeed the architect of the bombing, which remains the deadliest terrorist attack in Canadian history. So question for you, Isaac. The Khalistani movement is a divisive group, particularly among people in the Indian diaspora in Canada. What are some recent incidents which gained public attention from this group in Canada?
Yeah, Walid. So there's a long list to go through as the Khalistani movement has been in the headlines repeatedly over the past couple of years in Canada, especially with several high-profile incidents that have drawn not only national but sometimes international attention. One of the most recent came during the G7 leaders' summit in Alberta. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi was invited as a guest, and that decision sparked coordinated protests from Khalistan separatist activists across the country. In Calgary, though, demonstrators gathered outside City Hall chanting "Kill Modi" and holding signs with crosshairs over his face. Other chants included praise for the ideology of Talwinder Singh Parmar, the man accused of masterminding the 1985 Air India bombing that killed 329 people, many of whom were Canadian citizens. The protests were organized by Sikhs for Justice, a group banned in India and led by Gurpatwant Singh Panun, who has been designated a terrorist by the Indian government. And while police monitored the demonstration, the Calgary Police Service later said that Kill Modi chants did not appear to meet the threshold for criminal charges at the time, though they did say they would continue watching for any unlawful activity. And then around the same time, Panun escalated the rhetoric further when he released a video offering an $11,000 reward for anyone who could provide details on Modi's departure flight from Canada. He claimed the purpose was to deliver the remains of a burnt effigy of the Indian Prime Minister and an Indian flag to him. And in the same statement, Panun urged Hindu Indian Canadians to leave the country and return to India with Modi, telling them to fly Air Canada rather than Air India. And these incidents, of course, followed one of the most significant ones, which was the June 2023 killing of Hardeep Singh Najjar outside the Guru Nanak Sikh Gurdwara in Surrey, BC. Najjar, who was a prominent Khalistan advocate, was shot in the temple parking lot, and his death became a flashpoint in Canada-India relations because Prime Minister Justin Trudeau alleged that India was involved in the killing. And in May 2025, the RCMP actually charged 4 Indian nationals living in Canada with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder in connection with the case. So from the violent rhetoric and the bounty offered during the G7 to the ongoing fallout from Najjar's killing to the temple displays celebrating controversial figures, these events have underscored both the persistence of Khalistani activism in Canada and the deep divisions it creates within the Indian diaspora and Canada's political landscape. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has laid out his plan to fix Canada's immigration system, deport immigrants, and allow Canada's housing, healthcare, and job market to catch up with the number of people currently in the country. After being asked how he would fix the immigration system and deport illegal immigrants by Juno News' Keean Bexte in Calgary on Thursday, Poilievre reaffirmed his commitment to deport anyone who has been deemed inadmissible by Canada's border security and immigration departments. He also restated his call to have more immigrants leave the country than enter in the coming years.
Thanks for taking my question, Keean, with Juno News. I'd like to ask about immigration.
Yes.
Nigel Farage in the United Kingdom has been quite popular recently. He might even be Prime Minister if an election was held today with his plan to deport illegal migrants across the Channel. Donald Trump, same thing. He just launched a father-son recruitment campaign for ICE. It seems like the entire Western world, including the Liberals, have realized that out-of-control immigration is a problem, but Canada's the only country without a solution to fix it. And you don't have sovereignty without control of the borders. So I'm wondering what your plan is to fix it and get illegal migrants out of this country.
Thank you. Well, for anyone who has been deemed inadmissible needs to leave, and they need to be deported. Anyone who commits a crime while they're in Canada, they need to be immediately detained, and when their detention is complete, they need to be deported from the country. We need to track down the roughly 600 criminals that the Liberals have lost track of. That means using all our security agencies to find out where they are, to locate them, arrest them, put them on planes, get them out of Canada.
He called on the government to, quote, make it clear to temporary residents that if they commit a hate crime or a violent act against an identifiable group, they will be deported. Poilievre also said that Canada must disincentivize fraudulent asylum seekers from coming to Canada. He said, quote, we need a review of all the benefits that go to people who come as asylum claims to make sure they are not getting more benefits than Canadian taxpayers get. And those that arrive last, their cases should be treated first. If you come to Canada and you're not a real refugee, your case will be heard in a few weeks and you'll be back in your own country. Poilievre said the current system offers an often backwards incentive, as even if a person's asylum claim was found to be fraudulent and was rejected, fraudsters know they will have at least 7 or 8 years of appeal while they reap benefits from Canadian taxpayers. Poilievre added, quote, if it was very clear that their benefits wouldn't be there, that they would be sent back within a couple of weeks, they wouldn't come in the first place. We need to secure our borders, to stop the crossings, and more broadly on immigration, we need to bring way down the numbers of international students, of temporary foreign workers that are flooding our markets with low-wage labor. So, Walid, it seems as though Conservatives have gotten bolder on immigration since losing the election. What other solutions has Poilievre been calling on to fix Canada's immigration system?
Well, before I tell you about the solutions, it's been clear that Conservatives overall, not just Poilievre, but even his more progressive wing of the party, including Michelle Rempel-Garner, a Calgary area MP that supported Patrick Brown in the leadership race, she's made it clear that the government hasn't shown up when it comes to transparency on the issue of immigration by not showing any of the updated monthly numbers, not releasing it at least since March. It's been months. And of course, this is the year that we've accepted over 817,000 immigrants of different classes into the country. So Conservatives have taken definitely a stronger tone against mass migration since the election on April 28th. Of course, Poilievre suggesting a number of issues. You already mentioned some of them, including the crackdown on hate crime, making it very clear to all temporary residents if they commit an act of violence or a hate crime towards an identified group that they would be deported. He's also discussed previously linking the number of migrants to the housing situation in Canada. I believe he's also been a bit more aggressive in saying that he would be willing to stop migration or to put a moratorium on migration possibly, although I can't quote him, until housing and the economy are fixed. So I believe the rhetoric at least is much more bold than it was previously. And of course, Poilievre has also said, and as you mentioned briefly, that he looks to continue to reduce the overall number of immigrants over the next several years. I mean, he even said himself, we need more people leaving than coming. Net negative migration. He says that, we got millions of people whose visas are going to run out and not going to be eligible to stay much longer. So clearly, not only is Poilievre calling to reduce the amount of migration into Canada, but he's certainly calling to up the stakes and raise the amount of people leaving Canada.
That's it for today, folks. Thanks for tuning in. You can stay on top of new episodes every weekday by subscribing to the Daily Brief on iTunes and Spotify. Also, while you're at it, make sure to hit us with a 5-star rating and please leave a review.